It is the top of the hour, and the topic for tonight is living a life of purpose. My name is John, and I am live right now from a little town in northern Thailand called Mae Chan, which is in the province of Chiang Rai, and we are roughly half an hour away from the borders to Myanmar and Laos, a very rural area that we live in, for those interested in some potentially useless information. As I said, the topic, living a life of purpose, that's very, very dear to my heart. And before I explore and share some ideas, I consider myself extremely blessed, extremely fortunate. I live a quality and experience of life that I find and experience to be extremely purposeful, meaningful, having a feeling that there's something specific that I have to get up for in the mornings, and being able to go to bed at night feeling I've accomplished something, I've done something with my life. So as I said, the whole idea of living a life of purpose is very, very near to my heart. And I just want to share some thoughts and ideas that I've learned on this whole journey. Some of the most common questions that I'm asked when I do any kind of coaching interaction, whether it be one-on-one or in a group context, is the whole idea of purpose. How do I find my purpose? How do I know what my purpose is? Does everybody have a purpose? What is the purpose of life? And very often words that come up in the whole discussion would be words like meaning, passion. And what I'm hearing is the question, why am I here? What's the point of being here? Am I here just to be born, to grow up, to get a job, maybe to get married and get old and die? Or is there something that I can accomplish with my life? And the whole idea of purpose, I just want to look at two words to start off with, purpose and meaning. And I understand purpose to be what it is that I do with my life, what it is that I can find some expression of myself through, that there is a reason why I'm here, there is something that I can do with my life. And meaning is the actual experience, that sense of a well-being, that sense of contentment, that sense of satisfaction. There is something that I can do with my life, and it makes me feel good. It makes me feel good about myself. And that is what I understand about the whole idea of purpose and meaning. And another word that very often comes up is passion. And I've heard some people say, you find your purpose in life by finding what you are passionate about. And I'm not agreeing or disagreeing with any perspectives. There's merit in different opinions. I'm merely sharing my personal understanding based on my personal experience of discovering how to live a life that I find to be very purposeful and very meaningful. So getting back to passion, if you find your passion, you'll find a sense of purpose. And I've often, or at times, I've heard it being expressed that passion implying that which I love, that which I enjoy. And from my personal experience, absolutely. However, it's also important to understand that the word passion implies suffering. From a semantics perspective, the word passion implies pain, implies difficulty, implies having overcome very difficult situations. And that whole idea of passion, not so much fun and enjoyment. My life is full of fun and full of enjoyment because I'm able to live a life of purpose. But just purely focusing on the word passion, how do I find my passion? How do I find that one thing that I, if I can put it this way, can have an emotional investment in? How do I find that one thing that I really love doing? How do I find that one thing that I do that gives my life that sense of purpose? There's something to get up for in the morning, and that sense of meaning that creates a positive experience for me of my life. And my understanding of that is, and my personal experience is, very often the thing that caused the most pain at some stage of my life, and that I'm able to work on, I'm able to explore, I'm able to give meaning to, I'm able to develop a different perspective of that very painful, challenging, very often traumatic, what most people may describe as a negative experience. that very experience or that very time or process that I go through can become the thing that I become passionate about, and the very thing that can add its sense of purpose and meaning to my life. And one of my mentors, Evan Carmichael, often refers to this, that the very thing that caused me the most pain very often becomes my greatest purpose and provides me with the greatest sense of passion and meaning. And what he says is very often part of this whole process could include finding somebody that is right now where you were 5 or 10 years ago, at a time maybe when I went through very painful experiences, very difficult experiences, and maybe the awareness of surely there must be more to life, surely there must be something worth living for, surely what I'm experiencing now cannot be the be-all and end-all of life. There must be some deeper meaning, and that feeling of frustration, that feeling of almost desperation to bring about a change. If we find somebody like that we can relate to, because this person represents who I was at the time when I went through pain, and I share my life experience with someone like that, that very often helps me to find that sense of purpose, that sense of meaning, that sense of passion. And part of that experience is being able to give a whole different meaning to my past experiences, sharing that with somebody who may be going through something similar that I went through some time ago, and sharing some of the thoughts, some of the ideas, some of the tools with them, maybe for that matter, that I was able to use to bring about change and to see that kind of change in their lives. And I can really attest to that. I've often found that in my own life. And just a very, very brief background of where I come from. I come from a very negative background. A lot of dysfunction, emotional pain, bullied at school, experiencing sexual molestation, never feeling a part of anything or anyone, always feeling different, never feeling a part of my family, always feeling misunderstood, and just a whole range of very negative experiences. And I remember for many years being a victim to my circumstances, to my past, blaming everything and everybody. Getting to a stage in my life, fairly late in my life, which I regret, but I'm also happy that I did get to this stage, where I began to understand I can remain a victim, I can remain at a place of blaming situations and circumstances, and whatever story I was telling myself may have been true. It wasn't necessarily that I was lying or being untruthful. The story that I was telling myself about my life, about my experience, for the most part was true. And when I say for the most part, of course, we very often tend to add to it and dramatize and all that kind of thing as well. But that story essentially was true. But I knew that as long as I stuck to that story, as long as I used my story as an excuse to remain where I was, nothing would change. And with a lot of help from different resources, I was able to slowly start to work and get to the place where I was able to start to change my story about my past, where I was able to learn to give a different meaning to some of the very painful situations that I went through. And in some of the future talks we can explore the specific ways and means that how we can go about in doing that. But when I was able to start to think, what can I do to give a different meaning and tell myself a different story about the painful experience and situations that I've been through in my life? And it sounds so cliche, but what are the lessons that I can learn from that? What can I take from my life and turn around, give a different meaning that can give my life a sense of purpose? And as I said in the beginning, I've been fortunate for most of my life, particularly with regards to a career that I've always done what I've loved, because I was able to go to bed at night and just being satisfied with a day's work doing what I enjoy. But more than that, where I was able to interact with people and share with people a little bit about some of my story and inspire some people to understand that whatever I may have gone through, that very painful situation. And one particular example that always comes up in my mind when I talk like this, a number of years ago, I've been working in an addiction, or in the addiction recovery treatment field for a number of years. And a number of years ago, I was working with a young heroin addict who came into treatment for heroin addiction. And he was about 21 and just a very broken person and confused, had been in and out of rehab since the age of 14, if I remember correctly, had basically given up on life. And his family basically said to him, this is the last chance he goes for treatment, otherwise he's going to have to leave the home. And I remember sitting with him one day, and it was the first or the second session that I had with him, and I could sense he was prepared for any questions that I would ask, having certain answers ready because of his experiences in previous treatment. And I just had this sense, so I didn't ask the questions that he was expecting, and I could see he was sort of caught unawares, and he let his guard down a bit. And I just felt at the time to share some of my personal experiences with him. The fact that I'd gone through, experienced sexual molestation, ran away from home, landing up in the streets, always feeling unwanted, always feeling different. And he started crying. A very hardened, angry young man, became very emotional. And after he composed himself, his words were, this is the first time that anybody is seeing me. And even thinking about it now, I feel quite emotional. Those were his words. This is the first time that anybody is seeing me. And what I understood him saying was that they're actually noticing me. They're not looking at this broken drug addict with a criminal record at the age of 21, negative lifestyle and all the things that people who are desperate in those situations do to maintain their habit and their addiction. And that I was actually able to see him for who he was. And that was all because I related some of my story to him. And he felt acknowledged, he felt validated, he felt he could talk to somebody who had some kind of understanding where he was coming from. And as much as that situation wasn't about me, it was about him. I don't have the words to describe how that made me feel. That sense of making contact with somebody who'd been rejected, who'd been abused, who'd been even turned away from some treatment centers that he had been at before because of his bad behavior. And saying to me, this is the first time anybody is seeing me and feeling noticed and feeling heard, because I was able to relate to him. And it was from that time onwards that I started to consciously and unconsciously work on my own story, working on giving it a different meaning, moving from being a victim to what happened to my past to being a survivor, and then ultimately really finding ways to give it positive meaning. And since that time, I had a number of similar experiences, just talking to people who were going through very difficult and very painful situations and sharing that story. So why did I share this story? As I said earlier on, a lot of people are looking for a sense of purpose and a sense of meaning, and very often thinking, what can I do that will make me happy? What can I do that will be awesome? Very often look at your own life. Look at your most painful experiences. Look at what you may consider as failures and traumatic experiences, and work on giving that a different meaning and starting to share that. And that very pain can become an experience of finding a real sense of purpose and a sense of meaning, and ultimately finding that passion that people talk about.